What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImacSports.
Instagram is also at ImacSports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 261. Last week, we talked about some week one headlines, overreactions we were thinking about. And of course, after watching all the week two games, we got to talk about everything we were wrong about, which is most of it. And a lot of NFL today because, after 1 week, it's hard to determine if a guy's back, if a guy sucks, what's going on with this new coach. After 2 weeks, a little easier to tell.
Yeah, usually still pretty unclear after 17 weeks of football, but we're going to try to make our best judgments here, going over all the teams that are either winless or undefeated and how confident or how concerned we are for those teams, as well as doing our first check-in on the power rankings, which is always fun to do. But before we get into that, we got some openers, and they're both baseball related on a very football heavy episode.
Yeah, well, my team was terrible. We'll get into the Jet Report in a minute here. But this weekend I was hanging out with a lot of Giants fans, couldn't catch the A series as much. But Friday night, crazy extra inning game between the Dodgers and the Giants. My friend Josh bets a lot. I won't say how much money, but he bets a good amount of money on the Dodgers to win. As soon as Tanner Scott comes in, 2 pitches later, it's an absolute pimp job. Walk-off grand slam from Patrick Bailey, a very unlikely hero, but somebody they really needed to step up in their playoff race. Things didn't go well after that game, but I got to say we were all going crazy, even the A's fans, after that Patrick Bailey grand slam. Great game.
Yeah. My opener is going to be the A's because, just like Skyler, my football team didn't do the greatest this week. And this weekend, the A's had one of their best series of the year against the Cincinnati Reds. 3 straight wins, winner 3-0 on Friday, 11-5 on Saturday, and then 7-4 comeback victory on Sunday. And for an A's team that's been out of the race for a while, had the good month stretch of baseball, and then kind of, I don't say drowned out for a couple of weeks, but lost that hot stretch for a little bit. It would be easy for them to just be like, yep, we're not going to the playoffs. Let's just mail it in at this point and see where we end up at the end of the year. They do not do that. Cincinnati comes into town, which we know has been a decent team this year. And the A's take care of business there. Nick Kurtz homers a couple of times in this series, one of them going about 500 feet dead center, which was pretty ridiculous to see. An overall good series for the A's. They are now sitting at 70-80 right now. That's the most wins that they've had in a season since 2021. So that's an improvement over the last 3 years, which is cool to see. Obviously not where they quite want to be yet, because 70 wins still is nowhere near good enough to get into the playoffs. But a good, not a first step, but maybe a second or third step of this rebuild for the A's. And what in 2026, 2027 could be some very exciting teams, especially with what they got going on in the minor leagues.
Want to finish strong.
Exactly. So moving off of baseball, we'll talk maybe a couple minutes of baseball near the end of the episode when we do our weekly awards. But we've got some tough team reports to give out for our football teams.
Yeah, the Jets played Buffalo on Sunday morning, and the Jets defense started off great. Josh Allen got hit a couple times. You could really tell this was going to be one of those rare games where we actually had a chance to slow down Josh Allen. And then after multiple roughing the passer penalties on third down, the Jets defense literally could not stop a Josh Allen nosebleed. Justin Fields looked really off that game, and Aaron Glenn didn't let him throw the ball at all, which was really weird after last week until we found out he was playing through a concussion, which is just disgusting to me. We're in 2025, guys. Justin was stumbling around in the middle of a couple of plays, and finally the independent spotter pulls him out of the game and is immediately given the concussion label. And 3 for 11. Passing line. I mean, it was pretty obvious something was wrong with him, whether it was this week, last week, a hit from Joey Bosa, or Joey Bosa. So many Bosas, right? But anyways, the final score is 30-10, and that doesn't even fully express what happens in this game. Buffalo ran 71 plays for 400 yards, and the Jets couldn't even convert a single third down in this one, 0 for 11. So we got Tampa next week. Likely going to be Tyrod Taylor getting the start as Fields recovers from getting dropped on the head by Joey Bosa, which wasn't a penalty, by the way. So that perfectly leads into to Raiders Chargers after that.
Yeah, probably some more eyeballs on this Raiders Charger game, especially on the West Coast, with it being on Monday Night Football. Very much emphasis on the night of Monday Night Football, with the game starting at 7 o'clock our time. I'll try to stay off the Chargers here because we'll talk about them once we get into power rankings as well as the 2-0 teams. But the game was pretty ugly for the Raiders. 20-9 loss. Geno Smith throws a pick on the first play of the game and throws many passes throughout the game that should have been intercepted. Ends up going 24 for 43, 180 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, while also taking 3 sacks. Definitely, in the 2 games that he's played, by far the worst game that he's played for the Raiders. One of the worst games of his career, to be honest. I don't exactly 100% blame it on him because the Chargers defense was really locked in, didn't allow really any holes in their defense. And Geno Smith was just trying to pick it apart and just couldn't do it the entire night. Offensive line did not play good. The rushing attack, Ashton Genty only had 11 carries, but did get 43 yards. A lot of good runs from him, especially the broadcast booth was talking about how it just felt that he was one broken tackle away from breaking a lot of these runs. And I think that's something that we could see more from him as we get later on in the season. And maybe instead of throwing the ball 43 times, rely on Ashton Genty a little bit more in the number 6 pick in the NFL draft. Overall, I was pretty excited with his performance despite not being a crazy output game. On receiving end, Jacoby Myers, another solid game, 6 for 68. Brock Bowers, who was hurt coming into the game, had that huge, Gronkowski-esque knee brace, goes 5 for 38 without really being able to unleash anything. Rest of the receiving attack didn't really do much. Defense, still, I thought, played pretty well. Max Crosby was a game disruptor, forced a fumble late that gave us the ball and, one more chance on offense just to be disappointed once again. Devin White, I thought, played well. Jermaine Pratt almost had an interception. Jeremy Chin played well. Some rough penalties definitely cost us. But I think the defense played good enough to win this game, which is pretty surprising, I'd say, considering how the Chargers played in week 1 and how dominant they were on offense against the Chiefs. But I'm okay with the defense, but definitely Geno Smith needs to, I guess, lock it in because what he did on Monday night was not good enough. Then we'll see if it will be good enough against the Commanders next week, likely without Jane Daniels, which could help. But, I mean, just because you beat the Commanders without Jane Daniels, sure, you're 2-1, but does that really mean anything? Can you beat a good team? Who knows? And Geno is definitely the litmus test for all that. If he plays good, we'll win. If he plays bad, we'll lose. Similar to Derek Carr. Anyways, moving on from our reports and off the somber section of this episode and into the players of the week. Starting off with the player of the week, who'd you choose here?
I got an honorable mention for Brandon Aubrey, the kicker, and Danny Dimes, who both keep doing the impossible. But I think I've got to go with Jared Goff's 5 touchdown passes against the Bears. I think this is a massive statement to the NFC North from a Lions offense that says, hey, no Ben Johnson, no problem. Goff was just 2 points off of a perfect passer rating.
Yeah, Jared Goff is my player of the week as well, too. I do like that you gave an honorable mention to Brandon Aubrey and his ridiculous, LeBron-esque of kickers type performance, but Jared Goff was dominant. It was definitely a narrative game, starting before it with Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell. To the Lions fans, definitely, I wouldn't say giving a warm welcome to Ben Johnson, but definitely letting it be known that how they feel about him. But Jared Goff dominated, 23 for 28, 334 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 of them to Amon-Ra. He was really good and definitely, helped his case of he's only good because of Ben Johnson narrative. Now he's only good because of Dan Campbell. So, anyways, moving on to defensive player of the week.
Yeah, another week and another 49er with a game-winning defensive play. I'm going Fred Warner. His forced fumble on Alvin Kamara late in the second half completely flipped this game against the struggling Saints. 11 more tackles for him as well. But it's really the big play again. I mean, I thought those guys were totally going to lose to New Orleans before Fred Warner punches the ball out of Alvin Kamara, trying to make like a David Tyree helmet catch. And it was really close, but they did what they needed to do. They got the ball back and they won it.
Yeah. A lot of the best defensive performances came from losing teams this week, is what I noticed. I decided to go Joey Bosa just for the sack, 2 forced fumbles. There wasn't really any crazy defensive performance in my mind, but Joey Bosa was the guy who got the ball on the ground twice in the form of a fumble, and that usually means things in games. And so Joey Bosa, despite only having 2 tackles, he made them worth it.
I can back that up for you. Unblockable.
On to Rookie of the Week.
Yeah, I'm going Eagles safety, Andrew Makuba. He had the big interception off of Mahomes. It was the Travis Kelce bobble that flipped this play. Kansas City wins that game if he doesn't pick that ball off. And he also had a half sack on a blitz that was also on a third down on Mahomes. He was one of the best Eagles players in general, rookie or not, this week.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching Makuba. I enjoyed when they picked him as well too. He's like an undersized safety that doesn't really play undersized when he's got, coming down on somebody or whatever it is. He hits the guys hard. He's a playmaker. Definitely a fun player to watch. But my rookie of the week made his debut this week, and I'll go, even though it was a blowout, Quinshon Judkins was really impressive in his 13 touches that he had, 10 on the ground for 61 rushing yards, as well as 3 catches for 10 receiving yards. I know it was a blowout, but this guy just signed his contract like 4 days ago, and he already made an impact in that offense and kind of showed what he could be for that Cleveland Browns team. So I enjoyed Quinshon. Ted McMillan as well had a good game. I think he got to 100 yards for the first time in his career. As of right now, no rookie QB wins. So Cam Ward, once you get that first one, you'll probably be rookie of the week. But until then, it's going to be other guys. And Quinshon's my guy this week.
Alex doing something right for once in fantasy.
I took Quinshon in my other league, so I'm okay with it as well, too. Moving on, though, to our top 16 power rankings, because there are 32 teams in the NFL, not 30. I don't have any honorable mentions because I felt it was too early to, name 5 honorable mentions or whatever. So any teams that you want to talk about that didn't make the list?
I had as 2 honorable mentions, Houston and Vegas. I only had 6 AFC teams on my list, so I wanted to shout out a couple more to make it even. They'll be back.
All right. Let's get right into it then. Number 16.
All right, number 16 is going to be the 1-1 Denver Broncos. It's been real ugly for Bo Nix this season, but I do think they got screwed in the Indianapolis game. I still think the defense is going to win them some big games this year, and they're, a stupid lining up next to the snapper call away from being 2-0 here. So they make the cut over the Raiders, who also had a rough week.
My number 16 team, maybe the most surprising team for me, Indianapolis Colts, best point differential in the NFL in the first 2 weeks. Obviously 2-0, wins over Miami and the Denver Broncos on Sunday, of course. Danny Dimes has looked great. Defense has forced interceptions as well as just other turnovers as well too. And the offense just looks like a well-oiled machine right now. We'll talk more about the Colts later, but they're my number 16 team.
Yeah.
On to number 15.
All right, at 15, I got the Seattle Seahawks, also 1-1. Week 1 was a heartbreaker against the Niners, but then they kill it in Pittsburgh. They get some revenge in that Super Bowl rematch. Really good defense, really good running game. I don't care what people are saying about Kenneth Walker. If they win in the game, I don't care, just like Jalen Hurts said. So I got Seattle at 15. I picked them to beat Pittsburgh, by the way. I was surprised no one else did.
My number 15 team is 0-2, so we'll talk more about them later as well, too. The Houston Texans, only 28 points in the first 2 games of the year, but 2 rough draws with the Rams and the Buccaneers in their 2 games. CJ Stroud maybe hasn't looked the greatest, but their defense has been solid. And I think as that offense starts to get healthy with Joe Mixon and Christian Kirk, and just some of the other rookies as well too that they have just starting to get acclimated to NFL play. I think they'll be fine. And like I said, we'll talk more about them later. But as of right now, number 15 for me. Number 14.
At 14, I got the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. They haven't lost yet, but I wouldn't say it was a very encouraging couple of wins. They beat the Saints and the Panthers, two of the worst teams in the league, and they almost blew it a couple times too. So I'm going to stay cautious, even if they do beat the Niners this week.
Number 14 is where I have a 1-1 team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lose last week, but they do win their opener against the Jets, like we've talked about in the past. I think the biggest surprise for me is that they've allowed 63 points in the first two games of the year. That's not something that we would expect with their defense, but their offense has been, I guess, a subtle surprise as well too. Obviously, they still need to kind of figure out their running offense with Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, and Caleb Johnson somehow not being, somehow he's still alive in Pittsburgh after what happened on Sunday. But regardless, I still think the Steelers will be fine. I think they can compete in the division a little bit more now with Joe Burrow and his injury. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, 1-1, gives them the number 14 spot. Number 13.
At 13, I'm going Washington, 1-1. They start off great by beating up on the Giants, but the Packers literally just beat the crap out of them physically on every play. And now Jaden Daniels has his first NFL knee injury. I just want to see how he responds to that before they go back into the top 10 here, especially if Jaden Daniels does miss any time. That's psychologically, too. It's a tough one to come back from. We've seen a lot of different angles of this. You have Joe Burrow, who usually comes back and is fine, and then you got the Zach Wilsons of the world who come back and they're afraid of getting hit. So the knee injury is a tough one. I got to wait and see. So number 13 for Washington.
Number 13 for me is where I slot the Seattle Seahawks. A good bounce back victory for them in Pittsburgh game. Like Skyler said, I didn't expect them to win. Rough week one, losing at home against the Niners. A definitely banged up Niner team as well too. But I think the Seattle Seahawks will be fine. I still think it's a young defense that needs some gelling to do. And I think they'll do that over the course of the year. So Seattle, number 13 for me. Number 12.
At 12 is where I got the Colts. Daniel Jones looks great. The defense looks rejuvenated. Their kicker hasn't missed in his entire career, technically, with the penalty. Jonathan Taylor's healthy. Things are going well, but I think they're going too well. Unfortunately, they don't play Houston until November 30th, which is like your natural litmus test for the AFC South. But I do expect them to crash and burn out at some point here before that rivalry game. They got Tennessee and the Rams, pretty good defenses coming up in their next couple games. Probably won't be up near the top 10 after those two games.
Number 12 for me is where I slot the Atlanta Falcons. After a rough loss in week one with the missed field goal from Evan Hoku, kind of taking them out of that game against the Buccaneers, they bounced back big time on Sunday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings in a game that I didn't expect them to win. They made J.J. McCarthy very much look like a rookie, maybe even forced an injury on him as well too. Their offense looked explosive. It was a healthy game for them as well, too. And we heard about some stuff on their offensive side, maybe with Drake London and Darnell Mooney, Darnell Mooney maybe not being able to play in that game. They end up playing. Bijan looks fast and explosive. Tyler Algier looks like a great change of pace in that backfield as well, too. I like the Falcons right now. I like Michael Penix, and I think the Falcons have something here, and that's about a number 12 for me. On to number 11.
Yeah, next up's where I got the Falcons. It looks like they finally have a pretty good defense in Atlanta for maybe the first time in franchise history, which is pretty cool. And when Bijan and Tyler Algier are running like they did on Sunday night, they may never have to throw the ball again, which sucks for me who drafted Drake London. But at this point, it's just cool to see the Falcons start to evolve after the Arthur Smith era. Without a missed kick in week one, they're probably even higher for most people, too.
Number 11 for me is where I slot the Niners. They're 2-0 in their first two games, but probably the most banged-up team in the NFL. And the one guy that's healthy right now is one of the most notorious NFL injury-prone guys in the league, in Christian McCaffrey. George Kittle's out. Brock Purdy's out. They got a ton of injuries on the defense as well, too. Brandon Ayuk is obviously still out from his injury last year, but they're still 2-0. I know it's a win over New Orleans this past week that doesn't really move the needle for a ton of people, but when you're 2-0 and you have a divisional win, it's off to a good start. But now things start to turn up a little bit. They face the Cardinals this week and then the Jags and Rams after that. So we'll see how it goes in the coming weeks for the Niners. But as of right now, number 11. Number 10.
Yeah, number 10 is where I got San Francisco. And I have my doubts, of course, considering the injury curse that continues to haunt this team. But like you said, they get the job done twice in a row now. The Niners could easily be 0-2 season over, but the defense has won them both games this year. Shout out Bob Saleh.
Number 10 for me is where I slot the Washington Commanders. Maybe a bit higher than what I would have expected to put them. But I still like this team. I know Jaden Daniels is probably out this week, which benefits me because they're playing the Raiders. But this schedule is really hard for the Commanders. I'll say that. They play the Falcons, Chargers, Bears, Cowboys, Chiefs, Seahawks, Lions over the next handful of weeks. And those are all fringe playoff teams or Super Bowl winners in the past couple of years. So it's going to be rough for the Commanders. I don't think they're going to win the division. I didn't have that expectation for them at the beginning of the year anyways. But I do think, losing to the Packers isn't going to move them down too much for me. Number 9.
At 9's where I'm going to put Kansas City. 0-2. And yes, it's very encouraging seeing a Chiefs team that most people don't like start off 0-2. But they've had a pretty rough draw to start the season here. LA has a little more juice than them in Brazil. And then that Philly matchup was always going to be a coin flip. So Kansas City's going to get a little bit of the Dodgers treatment, probably from both of us, since you haven't talked about them yet, because they're one of the few teams that could shake off a bad start. They got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I will say, though, nobody has ever won the AFC or the AFL, whichever era you want to talk about, after an 0-3 start. So I got to feel pretty good about not picking them to go back to the Super Bowl so far.
Number 9 for me is where I slot the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Win last night against the Texans. Close win in week 1 as well, too, against the Falcons. The defense has been the biggest thing for me so far. They kind of ignored it in the draft, and it hasn't really caught up to them yet, which is good. Now they lose Kalijah Kancey for the rest of the year. I just saw a torn pec. That kind of sucks. But their offense looked good. Baker, Emeka Ibuka, the ageless Mike Evans, Rashad White as well, too, putting in work with the game-winning touchdown. Bucky Irving. I like their offense. I think they're going to do good things there. And with an easy division, wins are coming. On to number 8.
Yeah, number 8's where I got Tampa Bay. And just like the Niners, right, they've done their job, but the injuries are starting to come. They're just one of those teams that can't seem to stay healthy, especially on defense. So I won't say they're getting lucky. I did pick them to win the division over Atlanta, and that week 1 win is massive. But I'm going to keep my eye on them for sure. But, Baker loves Monday Night Football. He did it eventually, even though it took forever.
Number 8 for me is where I slot the Detroit Lions, and what a perfect game in week 2 for them, winning 52-21 over the Bears. Kind of silenced all doubters, and it really made it look like that first game against the Packers was more of a statement about the Packers than what it is about the Lions right now. And that's why the Lions are still top 10 for me, despite being 1-1. And that's why even if they lose to the Ravens in week 3, they'll probably still be top 10 or 11, unless it's like a blowout or something. But I like Detroit still. Number 7.
Yeah, at 7, I have Detroit. So we're very close on a lot of these teams so far, and I agree. Green Bay, more likely special than not at this point after seeing 2 games, and then to come out and score 50 points after that first week, sending a very big message that they're not going to go away that easily.
Number 7 is where I slot the Kansas City Chiefs, 0-2, the highest 0-2 team, of course, on here. Lose to the Chargers week 1, lose to the Eagles this past week. They lose to the Giants. That's what I'm kind of being like, oh, shit. Maybe something's going on with Kansas City. But as of right now, I'm not panicked at all with them. I know we'll get into that actual numerical value of panic here in a little bit, but they'll be fine. Maybe the division's a bit tougher, but Kansas City still is going to be a good team. They've had not an 0-2 stretch before, but they've had seasons when they were like 4-5, and maybe like, oh crap, Kansas City's not going to do it anymore, and then they go to the Super Bowl and maybe even win it. So Kansas City will be fine. Number 7 for me. On a number 6.
At number 6, I'm going Baltimore, my highest ranked team with a loss this season. And, they destroy Cleveland, of course. It wasn't that pretty, though. So I feel like I can't move them over some of the teams that really handled their business in a similar situation. And right, they didn't play on Sunday Night Football week 1 against Josh Allen. But like a team like the Rams did get into some trouble and handled business, and Baltimore didn't. So outside the top 5.
Yeah, Baltimore's number 6 for me as well too. Week 1 loss definitely hurts them here, but like you said, they're the only team that's not 2-0 to be in the top 6 for the both of us. I think week 1 kind of showed a bit of their ceiling, especially defensively. You expected them to be a bit better coming out of the gates, but they kind of got manhandled by Josh Allen, had rough Derrick Henry fumble late in the game. Game against the Browns, like you said, wasn't exactly pretty, but still, pretty easy victory. Couple fun tests over these next 2 weeks with the Lions and the Chiefs, and then the Texans and Rams after that. But Baltimore should still be a fun offense regardless. I'm not really worried about them at all. Number 5.
At 5, I got the Rams at 2-0. What an outstanding defense. Definitely living up to the hype. They completely shut down Houston, hold them to 9, and then do what they need to do against Tennessee. And something about Puka and Devontae Adams getting that open against Tennessee, who I think is, an above average defense too. They're not in our rankings today, but they put up some numbers against them. So I definitely think this is a top 5 team right now, when everyone's healthy, of course.
Number 5 for me is where it's locked to Los Angeles Chargers, starting out 2-0, probably the best they could have possibly started here. They have a third divisional game in week 3, which is kind of interesting, against the Broncos. I don't think I've ever seen an old divisional start like that in the first 3 games of the season, but they look great. Probably the best possible time for them to play the Broncos as well too now. I'll talk more about them once we get into team confidence in a bit, because I don't want to show too much of my hand right now. Number 4.
So I got the Chargers at 4. I'm going to flip-flop them because of how well they looked in Brazil that week 1. And of course last night too, but really when your game script is going perfect against Kansas City, you're doing something right. I thought there was, a chance they would throw the ball more when we talked about fantasy stuff. Like, hey, maybe Keenan Allen will be a good play this week, but it goes beyond that. They're letting Justin Herbert create. And, as a Marion Hampton owner in one of my leagues, it frustrates me sometimes. But sometimes you just got to push that aside and go, man, if Justin Herbert's able to win these games on his own, that's very special. Top 4.
Rams are number 4 for me. So both LA teams being in the top 5, I guess, is kind of cool for that city. Regardless, I like what the Rams have done so far. 2 kind of non-pretty victories, I'd say. Texans game was definitely ugly, and the Titans game was maybe a bit less, wasn't as easy as what you expected it to be against them, and a QB playing his second career game. Regardless, they get the job done. I think they'll be fine, and they're number 2 or number 4, so they'll be just fine. On to number 3.
At number 3, I'm going Green Bay. Week 1, they get that early divisional win, like we talking about. It's a massive head start, potentially a tiebreaker for that division too. So I like that. They come out on a short week, no disappointments at all. Micah Parsons looks great. Jordan Love looks like he could potentially be getting MVP votes, and they're missing half their receiving core right now. So I have no complaints about Green Bay at all. I wanted to have an AFC and an NFC at the top, basically, so they get the 3.
My number 3 team is going to be where I slot Buffalo. 2-0 start, maybe a bit of concern for the defense in the first game of the year, allowing 40 points, but it was the Ravens. They bounced back well in week 2, and they have the MVP. So they're sitting at number 3 for me. On to number 2.
Yeah, number two is going to be Buffalo for me. Maybe it's because my team just played them, and this is 2 weeks in a row where I've watched the entire game. But I'm not as worried about them as I've been in the past years. They're a lot younger on defense. Even if some of their first round picks haven't paid out in the secondary, they're going to be okay. Even DeMar Hamlin was making plays against the Jets. Um, James Cook, man. James Cook has not lost a beat. I was worried about him too. And maybe it's the Jets just suck. It's possible. But they just destroyed us, man. And they're probably going to do the same to Buffalo or to Miami next week, and then the Saints after that, and then the Patriots, and then the Falcons, and just all the way through the schedule. So game the nod.
Number two for me is where I thought the Green Bay Packers, and that's because their first two victories I thought were very fun and very good wins against really good teams. I know both of them at home, so maybe that takes them down a notch. But the Lions and Commanders, two teams last year that were playing playoff games pretty deep into the NFC side, they looked great in both those games. Both of them were, pretty much handily victory end to end. Week three against the Browns, obviously not worried at all, but I think it's a good litmus test against how the Browns played against Baltimore. How will they play against the Packers? Is it just going to be one of those end-to-end victories that we've seen? Do they let them back in at all? We'll see how it goes. I expect a complete blowout, though. Number one.
Philadelphia sticking at number one. I think this is the best team in the NFL by a pretty good margin until we see that Philly Green Bay game. I think week 10. I think I wrote something about it in the second half of the show, so we'll get back to that. But they avoid the trap game week one. No Jalen Carter, no problem. And then beating Kansas City on the road, that's not something that should be that easy to do. And they did it. They won by 3 at Arrowhead. Just kind of unbelievable, even though we all picked Philly to win the NFC, but it's still crazy to watch it play out time and time again.
Yeah, Philly's number one. The confidence in late games, late close games is something I really like from Jalen Hurts and the rest of this offense, and their ability to just close it out and really not even give you a chance on offense or defense to really do anything. Week three game against the Rams is something I'm looking forward to, but I'm not worried about this team at all. They're just fine. And moving on, we're going to talk pretty much a lot of these teams double now. Team confidence for these 2-0 teams. We're doing it on a 1 to 10 basis. Obviously, you can add some notes in there as well too. We'll go ahead and get it started with Buffalo.
Okay. Buffalo, I am 10 out of 10 on. If there was a year that Buffalo was ready to finally do it, I think most people were convinced after Josh Allen's comeback in week 1.
I'll go Buffalo 9. Maybe just slightly concerned for the defense a little bit, and just because it's Buffalo and things tend to go opposite direction of what they want them to late into the season.
Wide right, usually.
But they have the MVP. Yeah, they have the MVP on offense. James Cook was a touchdown merchant last year in fantasy. That was his big thing. It doesn't matter. Like he's just as good. His touchdown run against the Jets and week 2 was really fun to watch. And it feels like their receiving core is better than what it's been in previous years, even when they had Stephon Diggs. Keon Coleman, I know, didn't have a big game against the Jets, but not a ton of guys have big games with their matchup against Sauce pretty much entirely throughout the game. Shakir's solid, Kincaid solid, and even Elijah Moore was making plays. That was pretty ridiculous.
Don't even go there, man. That was just so depressing when he scored that touchdown.
Moving on to Green Bay.
Green Bay, I'm 9 out of 10 on. Green Bay looks like they're about to just rip through the regular season, but I do worry about the injuries. And maybe it's going to be perfect timing with Watson and Jaden Reed and all those O-linemen coming back right before the playoffs. So I'm not going too hard on them, but we could definitely see another like Lions situation from last year if the defensive players keep getting hurt. And here it is. The real test I want to see before I give them the 10, week 10 against Philly. So that's why I give them 9 instead of 10.
I went number 9 with the Packers as well too. The defense is star-studded. All 3 levels are fun to watch. It's a good offense with a good head coach. only thing keeping me off of 10, and I don't really know exactly how to feel about this, is that they don't have a go-to target on offense,
Could
which
be Kraft.
could be looked as, yeah, it could be looked as a pro and a con as
Yeah.
well too, because there isn't really that one guy you can circle on their offense that can beat you. They have like 5 or 6 different receivers that can really make a play against you. But not having, say it's 3rd and 7, season on the line, NFC Championship, whatever it is, against Philly. Who are you going to go to in that spot? And maybe that helps Jordan Love. Maybe that's just more on him to go make a play and go, evaluate who gets open and to be a smart quarterback. But as good as he's been in the first 2 weeks and as good as he's been in his young career, I don't know if I'm ready to quite be like, yeah, you know what, this is it for Green Bay. Not going to be as high as the score here for this next one. The Indianapolis Colts.
I got a 6 out of 10 against the Colts. It's just hard to see the Colts keeping this going. We'll see how they play against Tennessee. They're a rival. And, if you think they're legit, you would think they would completely shut down Cam Ward this week. So that's where my head's at. I'm taking it week by week.
Yeah, the Colts are interesting because they don't have the tests that these other teams do that are in other divisions because of their divisional games, of course. But with the Colts, I'm at a 3. Like I still have not bought in at all. I don't have a ton of faith in their offense despite 2 great showings. Obviously, 10 straight drives to start off their season with points, which is pretty nuts to see. I don't think that's ever happened. And their defense can create turnovers. It kind of reminds me of like a Minnesota-esque defense from previous years, where they can allow the big play, but also, get their own. Danny Dimes as the quarterback, like we've seen him fail too much. And I know he's gone to the playoffs. I know he's won a playoff game against Minnesota in 2022 or 23, whatever year it was, but I can't be bought in with him at the helm of this offense. I just can't. And that's why I'm at number 3. Next up is the Niners.
With the Niners, I'm going to give them the slightly better 7 out of 10. They've been destroyed by injuries once again, but they keep winning games. And I think at some point it's going to catch up to them, especially the Mac Jones aspect of all of this. But I'm not going to count them out. I think the race to 9 wins is going to be really fun to watch in the NFC as we get deeper into the season. And it's hard to bash a team when they start off 2-0. That's all you can ask for.
Niners are at 5 for me. And that's mainly because of injuries. It was a good win against Seattle. And also, winning against New Orleans really does not move the needle up or down for me at all. But the injuries are so prevalent and they're already in a tough division that it's tough for me to be like, they could weather the storm if Brock Purdy's out for 5 or 6 weeks with this turf toe injury that he's got going on right now. I do think it would be an interesting thing. Like the whole thing with the Kyle Shanahan offense is like any QB can do well in it, especially with that offensive line and the weapons that you have around them. And if Mac Jones goes like 5-0 and plays games like he does against the Saints, are the Niners gonna be like, oh shit, we gave Brock Purdy $55 million a year? Obviously, it's not going to be that big of a problem because they'll be 7-0 or whatever. But it is an interesting thing to think about when it comes to paying quarterbacks in that offense, and obviously was probably the big reason why Jimmy Garoppolo isn't there anymore. But the Niners, I'm just not fully in yet. There's too many injuries for me to be like, yep, they're back and they're going to the Super Bowl. And there's too many good teams in the NFC now as well, too, which we haven't said in a couple years. Cincinnati, this is a fun one.
Cincinnati's 2-0.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot they came back against Jacksonville. Yeah. Well, shit, dude. I guess that's my bad. I didn't take any notes, but this is an easy one. I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10 because they don't have their quarterback, Joe Burrow. And, it's just such a tough conference to play in. I think Jake Browning's done great things when he's thrown into the fire, but we already don't like this defense. I don't love it. So 4 out of 10 is going to be tied for my lowest score with them.
that tells you about the Bengals right now. The impromptu, oh shit, they are 2-0.
Yeah.
Because it is their first 2-0 start under Zach Taylor, I believe. This is a team that usually has rough starts. Um, and now they're without the quarterback for what they say 3 months without
Yeah.
Joe Burrow. That's going to be a problem. The defense got bailed out from Trevor Lawrence just throwing the ball around the field for no reason, and Brian Thomas Jr. also just seeming to not care either. That was pretty crazy. Jake Browning was practically Jameis Winston at quarterback. He was, chucking around, giving Jamar Chase his receptions, and T. Higgins had a cool touchdown. But obviously, definitely made some questionable reads. They're going to win some games and find their spots, but they're likely going to lose every big matchup, I think, for this team. So it's a 3 for me. On to Philly, which I don't think is going to get that low score.
Yeah, a 10 out of 10 as well, just like Buffalo. This was one of the Super Bowl matchups I was thinking is definitely possible. They have the most unstoppable play in probably NFL history, and they aren't going to change the rules midseason. So I expect them to do a lot of damage until then.
It's a 10 for Philly. I think the only team I gave a 10 to, the best team in the league, superstars on both sides of the field. They already won the Super Bowl, so you know that they could do it. 10 for me. Number 9. Or not number 9. The Chargers.
Chargers, I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10, actually. What a start to the season, man. Massive win against Kansas City. Their defense was flying last night without Khalil Mack. And when things have gone wrong, Justin Herbert and the Jesse Minter defense have been able to step up big time. And, I figured somebody in the AFC West would have to do this and step up if the Chiefs actually did start off slow, which they're doing. And the Chargers look way more ready for this opportunity than the Broncos or the Raiders do.
It's a 9 for the Chargers. This is by far the best team under Justin Herbert in his, 6 years or 5 years as a Charger now. I think there's a very legitimate chance he could win an MVP this year as well, too. He's been putting up some pretty great numbers in the first 2 games. He made that mistake late in the game against the Raiders where he practically just telegraphed one to Jermaine Pratt, and he dropped it. But besides that, I don't think I've noticed a mistake from him within the first 2 weeks. He's using his legs well. He's not scared to, run around the pocket and go make a play, when I think last year he was just so much in the control the ball type mindset that he was scared to go out and actually try to make a play. He can make every single throw. I hate saying it, but he's just so easy to watch and so, I guess, perfect at the quarterback position. Plus, their defense is very fast and very scary. Everyone plays together. It's one of the most cohesive groups in the entire NFL. It doesn't feel like a team that's playing in their second game of the season. It feels like this is, their 15th game. They've been playing together the whole season, and you're very aware of what's going on. And last night, their corners, guys I've never heard of before, were breaking on routes before the guys were even breaking. The wide receivers were breaking themselves. It felt like whoever had the green dot in the Chargers defense was getting the Raiders plays put into them instead of their own plays. And obviously, I'm not like saying they're cheating or something,
Yeah.
but that's how good they were. It looked like they were cheating because they broke on every single route, and it's not something I've seen from Chargers corners in a long time. So number 9, or not number 9. I give them a 9. On to Tampa Bay. There we go.
Unrelated, but our guy Nick Kurtz just took a pitch off the elbow with no padding. He looks like he's staying in the game, though.
Cool.
Unfortunate. All right, let's go. Tampa Bay, you said?
Yes.
All right. Tampa Bay is going to get the same grade as the Niners, 7 out of 10. Baker's on pace for another big season. but they almost blew it last night a couple times against the Texans. Also, week one against the Falcons. Although you can't start any better than this, I expect the NFC South and the wild card races to be much tighter this season, coming down to the last week instead of easily gliding into the 4 seed. So I'm not going to give them an 8 or a 9. I'm going to give them the 7. I think they're on pace, but they got to show us a little more.
I'll go 7 for the Bucks as well too. I think it's a very similar Bucks team to previous Bucks teams as well too. They're going to put up points. They play in a weak division and make the playoffs, but outside of that, they're not as good as Green Bay. They're not as good as Philly. They're not as good as these other teams in the NFC as well too, like the Rams. So their ceiling's limited, and that's why I give them a 7 instead of an 8 or a 9, kind of like you said. What about Arizona? Maybe the not very surprising team to be 2-0 because of their schedule so far. But if you were to just say these teams are 2-0 without realizing their schedules, this would probably be the most shocking team.
Yeah, a little shocking. I like watching the Cardinals a lot. I think Kyler Murray's an amazing athlete, but I also think he's reached his peak. And so I gave him a 4 out of 10, same as Cincinnati ends up being. I'm not sure how much they can grow with this offense. Especially if they refuse to give Marvin Harrison the ball. I like the revamped defense. I think they could win some games in that division, but I'm not really thinking about the postseason yet with these guys.
The Cardinals, I'm going to give a 2. Lowest grade I give out. Their defense doesn't get any gold stars from me because they beat Carolina in New Orleans, and somehow they let Carolina back into that game with how bad Bryce Young has looked so far. That was pretty ridiculous in my mind. And the offensive play calling is so weird, where they are so negligent to run the ball when they need to and feel the need that they have to do all these short passes all the time. And I know Trey McBride's a good target. He's worthy of getting the ball. But give the ball to James Conner. Give the ball to Trey Benson. Let Kyler Murray actually have design runs rather than these super funky read option plays that just have no chance to do anything. I don't like this team. I think they lose a good amount of games forward, so that's why I have them as a 2. And then the last 2-0 team is the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, I'm giving the Rams an 8 out of 10, same as their friends, the Chargers, who we had ranked right next to each other in the power rankings, as Daryl Hernandez gets robbed by Rafaela. Um, yeah, like I said, similar to the Chargers, they've been able to win the ugly one. Their defense is great. They're in a wide open division, and their coaching staff gives me way more confidence than your average 2-0 team coming up here.
The Rams are going to get a 9 for me. I think Green Bay and them are the biggest threats to Philly in the NFC. The offense is super well-rounded. So that's tight end, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, offensive line. And the defense has a ton of playmakers, young, old, and all in between. They make plays on all 3 levels. I know the game against Tennessee, maybe they allowed a bit more than what we were expecting them to do. But they still had that game pretty handily. So the Rams get a 9 for me. On to the flip side, there are some teams that are 0-2. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. We'll start off with the team that made the Super Bowl last year, the Kansas City Chiefs. How concerned on a scale from 1 to 10 are you with them?
My concern level is a 3 out of 10 this week because there's definitely some concerns. I'm not going to give them a 1. They can't run the ball. Their O-line looks terrible outside of the rookie, Josh Simmons. By the way, he's awesome. Transfer from San Diego State to Ohio State. He's going to be playing in the NFL for a long time. But they do have Patrick Mahomes. They have a great defense most of the time, and they're going to get over this. But like I said last month, if they don't win their division, I don't know if you can pick them to go to the Super Bowl. The '07 Giants were the last ones to do that out of a deep wild card spot. It seems kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime type of situation.
Kansas City gets a 2 for me right now. My concern is very low for them because it is just 2 weeks, and I know they will rebound. There is no if they will. You know that they will rebound. And I know the division is tough, and the Chargers might win it now at this point, which is a very real possibility that they have to settle with. Um, but if the Chargers are like 5-0 and the Chiefs are 2-4 after a loss to the Lions or something like that, maybe the meter starts going up to a 4 or 5 or even a 6. Uh, but I expect them to find a spot here where they go off and win like 8 games in a row because they've done it so many times before, and that's why I just have very little concern. I know there's stuff with they can't run the football. It feels like they haven't been able to run the football for like 3 years, and they've been just fine because of Patrick Mahomes and his ability to be like an extension of the run game with his short passing game and his decision making, and also his running as well too when they need him to. Um, but they're an injury away, I think, on offense to really being in something as well too. Houston, another 0-2 team.
Houston, I am definitely a little more concerned about. I'm going 6 out of 10 because I have some issues with CJ Stroud. At this point, it's more than a sophomore slump because if Nico Collins isn't open after 1 second, he's on the run and he's not very fast. So luckily for them, the AFC South isn't that hard to win. But if you're not the 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears, you got to score points to win the football game. So yeah, I'm concerned, man. 6 out of 10. They're definitely not going to be on the right side of at least our 0-2 rankings.
I'm not going to super high score. I do think they will be fine. I think the division is pretty easy, and plus they have no divisional losses so far. If they lost to
Mm.
like the Jags and the Titans in the first 2 games, I'd be like, oh shit, yeah, shit's going wrong. Um, so I'm going with the 3. Although CJ Stroud for some reason just hasn't improved over the past 2 years, and it's really weird to see. I know he doesn't have the greatest supporting cast. I know Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb at this point in his career. Nico Collins is really the only proven target that he has. Dalton Schultz has had some moments throughout his career, but we know what he is at this point. Xavier Hutchinson's in his second year. Jaden Higgins is in his first year.
Throw my man the ball.
Exactly. Throw Higgins the ball, please. But I'm not too concerned. They play the Jags and Titans over the next 2 weeks. I think those are 2 wins. And if they're 2-2, I don't think there's any concern at all. How about New Orleans? How concerned are you with them?
I give New Orleans a 7 out of 10 on the concern level. Surprisingly, Spencer Rattler, not too shabby. Of course, they'll be in the market to draft somebody in the first round, but it looks like they have the vets and the playmakers to just refuse to go 1-15. And, they look better than Carolina at this point, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Kellen Moore. I'm not saying they're going to do anything crazy, but 7 out of 10. They look better than I thought they would.
I'll go with 10. They suck. I know they played close against the Niners, but that Niners team is so banged up that it still is not much for me to be close in that game. Schedule gets harder now. They go to Seattle and then at the Bills in week 4. Spencer Rattler has kind of been surprising. He hasn't really turned the football over. He's made some plays, found Jawan Johnson, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave. Kamara's had some fun runs as well, too. But they're not going to do anything, obviously. We know that. Only reason why I was not going to do a 10 for team concern was that we knew that they were going to suck. There was no chance that they were I'm not concerned. Nobody was like, oh shit, I picked the Saints to win the Super Bowl this year. What am I going to do now? But just an objective concern, if all teams are rated the same, it's definitely a 10 in my eyes. What about the Jets?
Some teams I definitely graded on a curve. We'll get to that later. I do have a couple teams that are 0-2 that aren't going to the playoffs, but I wasn't as concerned as I was with Houston. The Jets, though, I gave 9 out of 10. Week 2 looked like a game straight out of the Adam Gase vault. And like I said earlier, I think Justin Fields was way more hurt than advertised from the Pittsburgh game. But either way, if you can't trust your quarterback to throw it more than 10 times in a game, you don't have a quarterback. That's what John Madden always said. And if you don't have a quarterback, a real quarterback who can throw the football, you're picking in the top 5 every single year. So I'm 9 out of 10 concerned. I'm not talking about 8 and 9 anymore. I'm talking about, ah, shit, man. This isn't the guy if he keeps getting hurt.
Yeah, my Jets number is going to be an 8. The first game was great, but the second game was horrendous. The defense will have its moments, but the Fields fumbling issue is something that just somehow he can't stop. I know maybe he was concussed for this game, which obviously plays a part into something like that. But he has like 43 fumbles in his career, and it's like 45 starts or something as well too. Like it's not a ton of starts either. So he's losing them games for doing that. Uh, and we don't have a quarterback, like you said. Everything else around it makes it so much more tough. So if this team had Joe Burrow, maybe they're going to the Super Bowl. But this team has Justin Fields, they're not going anywhere close to it. It's an 8. Miami.
Miami's getting a 10 out of 10 from me. Tua has a great first half and then sucks in the second half against New England. Negative 31 point differential after that blowout loss against Indianapolis, of all places. That locker room has got to be a complete disaster at this point. There's no shot they're doing anything this year.
It's an 8 for Miami, only because I thought it was a way better showing offensively in the second game, and it kind of cooled the narrative a little bit, especially if you're box score hunting, which a lot of people are. I know it slowed down in the second half and things didn't look great there, but I think it was good enough for a week for me to be like, okay, Miami isn't going to go 0-17 now at this point, and things aren't going to be completely dysfunctional 100% of the time there anymore. Defense is still a sight for sore eyes. And again, like Miami's a team I didn't pick do well this year. I think I had them winning, 6 games, 5, 6 games, whatever it was. So it's an 8 for Miami for me. Carolina.
Carolina, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10. I see a lot of similarities with the Jets. They almost come back in Arizona. I like their draft class. But when your quarterback has a 29 QBR, you're just not going to get the job done. And like the Jets, if you can't trust your quarterback 99% of the time, your season is wasted and you're picking in the top 5. I don't trust Bryce Young. Similar to Miami, the numbers look pretty good last week. But maybe that's just more about Arizona not being able to put people away. I don't like Carolina. 9 out of 10.
Hey, Carolina's getting a 10 for me here. Bryce Young has had maybe 2 solid drives in the first 2 games of the season. The defense is still terrible. Tet looks good, which is a plus. But I think we're looking at 2 1-16 seasons from the Panthers and the Saints, with their wins coming against each other in their season split. So maybe they partner to just not go 0-17 on both sides. But they're not doing anything. We knew that. What about the Bears?
The Bears are another one of those teams that I am going to take the curve off and just give them the 10 out of 10 concern. And I want to make it clear that I don't think this is Caleb Williams' fault. I don't think he's the problem. They could very well still end up with a high-ranking offense at the end of the year. But they also still have the chokers mentality, and they play scared. And I'm very worried about their defense, even though they do play outside, which is a rarity in their division. The Cowboys, Raiders, Commanders coming up next. Most of the time, 0-3 will knock you out of the division. 0-4, the playoffs. 0-5, your season is over, and you're talking about firing people and moving off of your quarterback. And I don't think that's the right choice, but I think it's very possible they're 0-4, 0-5. So I'm going to give them the 10.
I'll go 6 for Chicago. And maybe that's just because my perception of these next 3 teams that they play is a bit different. The quick 0-2 start in the division sucks, but I don't think anybody was picking the Bears to win that division this year with how good those teams are. I think, maybe the playoffs were an aspiration, maybe not as much anymore. But everyone kind of understood from the outside of Bears perspective that this was going to be a year of growth for Caleb and Ben, and for them to really figure it out what they have. We know Caleb has made plays throughout the first 2 games that you can be like, yeah, this guy has the ability to be a franchise quarterback. he hasn't really made too many plays that were the opposite of that, except for that terrible interception that he threw to Kirby Joseph on like a 2nd and 32 in that Lions game. Uh, so maybe I'm just not panicking because there is a young quarterback, young head coach, and I think things take time to figure out. But this year, this Bears team, probably not going to do much in the grand scheme of things. So a 6. What about Cleveland?
Cleveland, I'm also a 10 out of 10 on because they suck, man. Flacco probably is not going to survive the season. I would imagine we see some Dylan Gabriel more and more as we get through the season. I don't know about Sanders. That team is just so rough. You don't want to wreck the guy's confidence. And Gabriel doesn't care. It seems like he was in there last week. But coming up on the schedule, Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota, that's depending on who's playing quarterback for Minnesota. That's probably 0-5. That ends your season. So similar to Chicago, I feel like I have to say that they have no chance.
Browns are going to get a 9 from me. And the only reason why it's not a 10 is because what do you expect from this
Yeah,
team? You knew that they
sure.
were going to be god awful. They have some young offensive pieces that I think can make it fun. Um, and even though while concern is high, the pressure is low. I think like just because they're 0-2, nobody's like, got to win this game or else you're not going to the playoffs. Everybody in Cleveland already knew and doesn't expect much from their football team pretty much any year. So it's a 9 from Cleveland for me. But I don't think that's like an oh shit thing either. It's just this is what we got type thing. How about Tennessee?
Tennessee was one of the teams that I did grade on a curve. This is the only team that's 0-2 with a rookie quarterback, so I gave them only 4 out of 10. Denver and the Rams, not the best matchup for a rookie quarterback to start his career. I feel terrible for Cam Ward, and I completely expect them to be much better throughout the season. Maybe they won't get to 8-9 wins like we had contemplated a couple weeks ago, but I'm not going to take away points because they lost a tough game against Sean McVay. So that's kind of how I viewed this thing. Tennessee, okay. Chicago, Miami, dumpster fire.
Tennessee, I'm going to give a 4 as well too, and it's honestly not that high. I enjoyed their game against the Rams, despite not really ever being in it. I thought Cam Ward's looked solid in his first 2 games against 2 very rough defenses. The run game has been formidable as well too. I think that's something that we saw last year, where it was they gave the ball to Pollard 250 times, but they didn't really have a plan when they were doing it. They were just trying to get out of games at that point. But I think there's a bit more purpose when that is going on this year. The defense has been decent as well too. I know the Rams, rough game there, but I thought it looked good in week 1. It kept them in the game against Denver in a game that I don't think really anyone thought they were going to have a chance in. So it's only a 4 for Tennessee. I think they'll be just fine.
Okay.
But also, I don't think I'm expecting them to make the playoffs or anything. Last 0-2 team is the Giants.
The Giants, I gave a 7 out of 10 because I don't think they're actively tanking like a lot of other teams on this list. But that defense is about to get everybody fired. If you're Dable, this is a 10 out of 10 probably. And if Dable does get fired midseason, it turns into a 10 out of 10 disaster. But until then, there's some hope to play spoiler because it seems like they're content with riding with Russ as far as he can go. And if that happens, they'll probably play a little closer to 6-7 wins than 2, I think.
The Giants, the concern is 8, which is high. But it's also like last Sunday was probably the most fun New York Giants game we've watched in the last almost 10 years, going back to that 2016 team. The offense was firing, and Malik Neighbors, and he was making plays and doing things for that offense that we just haven't seen since Odell Beckham Jr. was there. The defense struggled, obviously, but I think the overall perseverance under Dable was better than what I expected from this Giants team. Definitely looked better than week 1. And I can see this team, especially if Russ is their QB and they don't go into full developmental mode, which I think there's a good chance because there is Dable fighting for his life, can find ways to win games against a Broncos team or sneaky game against the Niners or the Bears or the Commanders or whoever it may be, I think there's a chance for the Giants team to sneak their way into some wins, depending on how they play this out. So moving off of that, we'll get into our player pitcher rookie of the week of the MLB. Latest in the show that we've ever done this segment, that's for sure. But who's your player of the week in the MLB?
Aaron Judge hit 4 more homers, and he hit 500 this week. That's got to be real nice for your fantasy team, by the way. But the point is, who knows where the Yankees would be without him? Later in this week specifically could have gone disastrously wrong for the Yankees. But some big games from Aaron Judge helps them beat the Tigers once, Boston twice. They keep the Yankees at that number 2 spot in the AL East.
Aaron Judge, my player of the week. 8 for 18, 4 homers, 7 walks. Definitely helped my fantasy team. I need him this week as well, too, in the championship. But Aaron Judge, that power that I wouldn't say went to a lull over the past couple of months, but just wasn't Aaron Judge-like over the past couple of months. It finally looks like it's completely back. And Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge. On to pitcher of the week.
Honorable mention to my guy, Tanner Bybee. Also, George Kirby struck out 14 Angels. I missed that one. But I'm going to go back to Kevin Gausman, one of the guys I always love to shout out with this award because it seems like no one watches his starts. Complete game shutout, win over Houston, 2 hits, 1 walk, 9 Ks.
I did go with Tanner Bybee, and maybe just to fill out the complete game shutout section here. He goes 2 hits, 0 walks, 10 Ks. It was against the White Sox, but the White Sox have had some decent offensive performances here in the second half, at least. And it's the first shutout for a Guardians pitcher in 888 games. So I think that is valuable as well, too. On to rookie of the week.
Nick Kurtz did hit the nearly 500-foot homer, but I'm going to have to go with his running mate here. I feel like I have to go Carlos Cortez. Another A's player wins it because Cortez is a guy with questionable power, pretty small guy, and he just tortured the Reds this weekend. 4 for 8. He hit 500 just like Judge, 3 big homers, and a 2.0 OPS. Again, this guy's like 5'8". That's insane.
My rookie of the week made his MLB debut. And while he didn't have the greatest total performance, I think, Carlos Cortez, Nick Kurtz, like you said, had some good performances. I think he had one of the best debuts that we've seen from a starting pitcher in a little bit of time. That's Trey Savage, who made his MLB debut yesterday. Flew up the minors. I believe he just got drafted last year. Goes 5 innings, only allows 3 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 9 Ks in his debut. The splitter looked ridiculous. The stuff is so weird. His cutter and slider both break arm side, which is a sentence that should just not make sense at all, but it does. His stuff is really weird. His release point is like the highest off the ground out of anybody in the MLB or something like that. It's like over 7 feet in the air, very vertical approach. He's fun to watch. Trey Savage, maybe get to know the name because his uniqueness is going to help him out here for a long time.
ECU Pirate.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just so used to seeing this because it's happened like every single week this year. A new guy comes up, throws 100, strikes out 10. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I probably should have mentioned him. Yeah.
Welcome to 2025 MLB baseball. That's just how it is now.
Yeah.
But we'll move into the second half here with some college football.
Yeah, week 4, college football this week, and a lot of really good double-ranked matchups, which I've been missing because South Florida last week let us all down, unfortunately. But we started off Saturday morning, 9 a.m., a little Big 12 rivalry. Number 17, Texas Tech, goes to number 16, Utah. Both undefeated, kind of the old school against the new school of the Big 12. Texas Tech's been there forever, hasn't won a lot in forever, but they had the best poll out of the entire transfer portal. So I'm really excited to see this matchup in the morning. At 12:30, another double-ranked Jackson Arnold and number 22 ranked Auburn. He goes back home to number 11 Oklahoma to face Johnny Mateer. Oklahoma is a touchdown favorite, but this should be a crazy high-scoring game. I'm excited to watch it. Crazy that this is now an SEC rivalry, too. Sometimes you forget so much change. 12:30 also, though, a game our friend Alex will be watching. Michigan gets another test. How does number 21 Michigan and Bryce Underwood, the freshman, play against Matt Rule in Nebraska? I wasn't necessarily convinced, but it looks like Vegas likes Nebraska a little bit. Only a 2.5 point favorite for Michigan. Rayola, really big game for him. Florida is going to number 4 Miami. I kind of just want to see how Lagway reacts to last year. What is this guy made of? Obviously he's got some insane talents, but is he just another Anthony Richardson guy who we don't really know? And you got to get a crazy team like Indianapolis to take him where he goes, or can this guy come back strong? I'm interested. At the same time, though, another Big Ten game. Number 9 Illinois, number 19 Indiana. Indiana 6 point favorite in that one. I really like Fernando Mendoza from Cal. He's the Indiana quarterback. How will he look against a top 10 defense, Illinois? And then we get a little, former Pac team after dark. Number 25 now, USC. Shout out Cowherd. They are facing Michigan State. Michigan State, kind of a rough era for them, but they are undefeated. USC tends to blow games like this. So hopefully this is another fun one at 8 p.m. that night too.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Kyle, if you don't have anything else there, I got a little first Heisman watch for you.
I'm ready.
All right. A lot of honorable mentions, right? We can't talk about everybody. Dante Moore, Ty Simpson, Haynes King, Joey Aguilar, they put up crazy numbers these past couple weeks. They're definitely on pace still. I just need them to do it against a better team. So we're going to kick off number 5, Missouri running back Ahmad Hardy. This is one of those guys that doesn't really have any odds for the Heisman yet. I'm trying to get ahead of the curve here with Missouri's best player. 462 rushing yards, second best in the nation. He's 8 yards per carry. He's one of the best non-quarterbacks in the nation so far. So if we get him on the list now, like before they go and play Georgia, that could be pretty good odds for you. And after that, we get into all the rest of the quarterbacks, right? Number 4, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. The numbers for Nuss don't necessarily stand out yet, but he's looked the part against teams like Clemson and Florida with good defenses. So I think it's only a matter of time before they let him just rip it like they did last year with Brian Kelly. So we'll keep an eye on him. Number 3, John Mateer, Oklahoma. 7th in the nation in passing with 944. Only 5 touchdowns to 3 picks, but he also comes with the rushing attack. 4 more rushing touchdowns on the ground, plus very big win over Michigan's defense. Number 2 is going to be the Miami quarterback Carson Beck. And, I got my concerns when it comes to the NFL, but Carson Beck has just been straight up dominating this season. 7 touchdowns passing, and 2 of the bigger ranked wins of the season so far. They beat Notre Dame and South Florida. He's completing 80% of his passes. If he keeps that up, someone might take him in the first round, dude. Like the same reasons that Mac Jones went where he did. He's just one of those guys who can get the ball out quick. And we'll see what happens later in the season. But so far, so good for Beck. My number 1 guy, none of us talked about him preseason. Marcel Reed, Texas A&M quarterback. Reed has got the Aggies ranked in the top 10 after a crazy win at Notre Dame. He had almost 400 yards in that game, 10 touchdowns, 1 pick, and one of the few SEC players who's really dominated every week. So right now he's the favorite for me. I wouldn't throw any money down because like superstars all over the SEC in the Big Ten this season. Like I said, Dante Moore and Jeremiah Smith, not even in my top 5 right now. But things can change very quickly once you start getting into conference games. Very quarterback heavy. Just excited to see who can keep it rolling.
Yeah, definitely been a good start to the college football year. Good games every single week, surprising upsets. It feels like every week. Hopefully that continues in week 4 as we start to get into some conference play, which is usually more fun football to watch. Last week, Lips and bold predictions. We'll start off with the layups. I had the Bears plus 5.5. They lost by 30, so we'll just move on from that. Skyler had SF Bulls plus 18.5 versus number 5 Miami. They also lost by a similar amount. So we'll move on from there as we go into on that. This week, I have the Chargers minus 2.5 versus Denver. I talked about how my confidence is high in the Chargers right now and is low in the Denver Broncos. And I think it really shows in this game. I like the Chargers to be better than them on defense. I'd like them to out some on offense as well too. So Chargers -2.5. I think they easily win by a field goal in the first legitimate home game of the year, I believe.
Yeah, I'm on board with that one too. Also, turns out Miami's legit. So sorry, guys. Carson Beck. My pick, though, it's going to be a game you talked about earlier on our power rankings. Green Bay -7.5 at Cleveland. This isn't the kind of test that tells you if a team's going to the Super Bowl, but it's the kind of test that lets you know if they could potentially rip off a 16-1 season or something like that. So I'm going to have Green Bay covering 8 points in Cleveland easily.
Last week, my bold prediction was Jacksonville over Cincinnati. It looked so good before it looked so bad. So that goes red. Skyler had Tampa Bay over Houston on Monday Night Football. It goes green in the final seconds with Rashad Vikings in the end zone, so that's good there. This week I have Houston over Jacksonville. It's super widespread. It's only +105 right now, but get it while you can. While it's at plus odds. It's in Jacksonville, but I don't think there's much of a home field advantage when it comes to Jacksonville playing, as we know. And Houston, I think, is just better than Jacksonville. I don't trust Trevor Lawrence to do much against that defense of Houston. And I think it's a good opportunity for CJ Stroud to bounce back against a offense that just allowed over 300 total passing yards and over 200 to Jake Browning.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the Texans starting off 0-3, so I like that one. I'm going back to college for my pick, though. Only a couple of teams over the past 5 years have started off 3-0 every time. Oklahoma, Georgia, Penn State, Ole Miss, and Rutgers. So I'm going to take Rutgers to win at home against Iowa. I just don't think Iowa's offense can keep up with them. So it's only a +120, but it's definitely a rivalry game. I'm taking the Scarlet Knights.
That's going to do it for episode 261. Next week, 262. Maybe get more back into baseball as we gear up for the playoffs. That's going to be fun. I got to see what day does the MLB playoffs start.
You would hope October 1st, but I don't think that's the case.
Tuesday, September 30th.
Oh,
so that's rough. Maybe we move up the episode by a day. Who knows? But that would be 2 weeks from now. Regardless, we have that coming up, which will be fun. NFL season will continue to get going. College football season will continue to get going as well too. And the NBA is back in a couple of weeks as well too.
That's true. That'll be fun for the Warriors who haven't made a single, official move. We know Al Horford's coming eventually. Gary Payton's coming back, but none of it's official because Kuminga's still taking up their money.
Yeah.
Fun times.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Mock draft season, Kyle, already.
Ooh, wow. Didn't think about that one.
We'll see. Maybe I'll do one tonight. I'll send it to you.
Cool. All right.
All right. Adios.